Shabbat Shalom, guys. This is Rivka. Um, if you've been with us for a while, you know that this year we have tried very practically to walk out the spring feasts agriculturally speaking. And I may or may not have mentioned it here, but I did mention it to at least a few people that one of the things I was asking the Father for was tender grapes on the vine before Shavuot. We have grapes in the grocery store, and we have had since right after Passover. But I wanted to be sure that I knew that the grapes that we're seeing were from the land of Israel and they were not imported. So I had asked the Father for this sign that we were on the right calendar, further proof that we were on the right calendar, further proof that we had reckoned the spring feast correctly. And Friday before sunset, I was going out to try to get my exercise in, and I was walking around the same little course I always walk, and I was aware that there were grapevines in at least one place in the area. And when I was walking past that last night, I just looked up at those same vines that I'd never been able to see anything on until this point. And lo and behold, there were grape clusters. And I don't mean, yes, they're small for their size, but I don't mean something that was so underdeveloped that I couldn't recognize them. I mean grapes that were recognizable as grapes. But before I get into the video where I show you finding the grapes, I want to refresh your memory on the verses that show that we do need grapes. And we're going to start in Genesis 30:14, because there we see Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field. Okay, now we're talking about wheat and mandrakes. Wheat harvest is the time of Shavuot, which will be next Friday night at sunset, so we're 1 week early. And he found mandrakes and brought them unto his mother Leah, and Rachel said to Leah, "Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes." So now we are going to go and we're going to see in the Song of Solomon exactly what the significance with grapes and mandrakes are. And we're going to go to Song of Solomon 7:13, but we're going to start in verse 12, because even though mandrakes are mentioned in verse 13, we're going to see that tender grapes are mentioned in 7:12. Let us get up early to the vineyards. Let us see if the vine flourish, whether the tender grapes appear, the pomegranates bloom forth. There I will give thee my loves. The mandrakes shall give a smell, and at our gates all manner of pleasant fruits, new and old, which I have laid up for thee, O my beloved. So mandrakes are tied to wheat. Mandrakes are tied to tender grapes. Mandrakes are tied to the time of Shavuot. This was why I was asking the Father, could I see on the vine in the land of Israel grapes before Shavuot? And like I said, as I was walking around the neighborhood at before sunset doing my exercise walk, I found the grapes. Now, this morning, when I was out on my stroll, which is not an exercise walk, just getting fresh air, I went past a second location and I didn't photograph it because it had a netting around the cluster of grapes to keep it from the birds. But I went past a second location with the teeny tiniest of new grapevines, probably planted very recently, and one cluster of grapes behind the netting. So in our neighborhood in the last 24 hours, I have found two occurrences of tender grapes. Now, a tender grape, according to the King James, is simply a grape that is less mature. It can be from the bloom to before the grape is ready to actually be eaten or used. And you're going to see in some pictures after the little clip coming up that there's just a little yeast around the stems of the grapes that I collected. But next up, you're going to see the video that I took on my exercise walk yesterday when I realized the Father had provided me a witness of tender grapes right in front of my eyes. tender grapes. Thank you, Father. We have tender grapes. Oh my. Now I'm going to be the first to admit to you I have not been faithful towards the end of the counting of the Omer to chase some of these things like I had originally intended to. But you know what? There are times, even when we're not faithful, that the Father's faithful to us because He wants to give us our truths, His truths. He wants us to understand His will and His way. And I'm sure you can hear in my video that I recorded just the expression of my heart that I was so full and dumbfounded and surprised and humbled that even when I had not faithfully chased the grapes, that He had faithfully chased me and shown me the tender grapes on a Friday Sabbath before my walk, or during my walk. And then even this morning when I went out again just to take the fresh air of the cool morning, I had a second witness in the same neighborhood, on opposite ends of the neighborhood, but in the same neighborhood. I had a second witness of tender grapes that are ready a full week before Shavuot. So when I came home, then I took my little grapes and I came home with my little grapes in my hand. I just beat a path to the door. You're going to see them in the next little clip. I took just 5 little grapes in my hand and I brought them home. And when I did, I want you to know I went straight to the flour and water. I went ahead and I just rinsed the grapes. I did not wash them. And if you look really closely, you can see just the appearing of some yeast around the very stems, the gray blush on the fruit, just around the stems of these hard little grapes, these unmature little grapes. And I put them in water and mixed them together, fourth a cup, fourth a cup. This is this morning. You can see the bubbles beginning to make. And there's the top view. There's very obviously bubbles. No, it's not even been 24 hours, and I didn't know in all honesty if the grapes had enough sugar in them to make the yeast grow. So I was anxious to check it this morning. And as you can see, the yeast is already beginning to consume the flour. So obviously we've got enough, some kind of sweetness in the green grapes to cause yeast to grow and feed from the meat of the grape. But here's our good news. We have grapes to rise the flour for Shavuot. We have grapes in the season when we should have a wheat harvest. Sunday or Monday, I will be contacting the University of Haifa and asking them for access to their wild wheat and barley fields. The barley is past, they're all stalks, there's nothing left. The wheat, though, I have not seen yet, but the University of Haifa does the genome study on the indigenous grains of Israel, and I'm told they have wild fields of wheat and barley that they allow to grow and to guard every year for their genome study. So I'm asking you to pray that when I call on Monday, that I get a hold of the right person and that I'm given favor. I don't need to go in and take a sheaf of wheat. I would simply like the ability to photograph the field in the condition it's in, to pluck a few heads and to check the stage of development of the kernels. I need to see that at least it is hard dough, maybe hopefully even caramel in its development. And I'm going to call them on Sunday, which is our Monday. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking the Father, who's been faithful to give me grapes when I drop the ball, to get me all the way to the end of our spring season, so that we know that we know that we know we had barley in the time of the barley, grapes in the time of the grapes, pomegranates in the time of the pomegranates, wheat in the time of the wheat, doves in the time of the doves, storks and everything, ewes and lambs, everything in its due season to establish this new year. Shalom, Rivka.